For the generation who came of age in the vibrant decades of post-war Britain, Grandad's car was far more than a simple machine to tackle the daily commute. It was the absolute anchor of family life. It was the proud vehicle parked under the suburban streetlights, the mechanical beast meticulously maintained on a Sunday morning, and the trusted companion that carried families down to the coast for unforgettable summer holidays. As time marched into the modern era of injection molding, plastic bumpers, and silent, insulated cabins, many granddads made the practical decision to sell their classic steeds to upgrade to something more modern. Yet, decades later, as modern cars became increasingly clinical and computerized, a deep sense of collective nostalgia set in. Looking back through old family photo albums, many granddads and their families now look at those missing silhouettes with a profound sense of wistfulness, realizing they had parted with a piece of true automotive history. Today on UKTorque, we are counting down 10 classic British cars that Grandad should never have let go. Stay with us until our number one spot, because it belongs to a world-famous, rally-winning performance icon whose pure driving magic and soaring values have left thousands of former owners with a permanent sense of heartbreak. Number 10. Triumph Dolomite Sprint, 1972 to 1980, the innovator. We begin our countdown in 1972 with a car that brought genuine high-performance engineering straight to Grandad's driveway, the Triumph Dolomite Sprint. This vehicle was a true pioneer of its era, highly celebrated as the world's first mass-produced car to feature a multi-valve engine layout, utilizing a clever 16-valve cylinder head on a 2.0-liter power plant. For the family man who enjoyed a spirited drive, it offered executive comfort blended with sharp, sporting performance that could comfortably outrun far more expensive sports saloons on the bypass. However, owning a high-tech machine in the 1970s required an uncompromising level of mechanical awareness. The sophisticated alloy cylinder head was highly sensitive to the quality of the coolant used. If an owner neglected the corrosion inhibitors or allowed the engine to run low on fluid, the cylinder head was prone to warping or blowing its gasket. As everyday reliability became a priority or local garages struggled with the advanced setup, many granddads decided to trade the Sprint for simpler, more conventional transport. Many owners later admitted, however, that the modern cars they bought to replace it felt completely numb by comparison, missing that immediate, mechanical punch and forward-thinking character that made the Dolomite Sprint an absolute standout on the road. Number 9. Rover P5, 1963 to 1973, the dignified sanctuary. The Rover P5, particularly in its later V8 powered forms, was the absolute definition of traditional British dignity and institutional prestige. Often referred to as the Prime Minister's choice, because it faithfully transported British premiers and high-ranking officials for decades, it offered a magnificent, stately presence. It wrapped Grandad and his family in a beautifully appointed cabin complete with thick leather armchairs, a polished African walnut dashboard, and a smooth, effortless ride quality that turned every journey into a high-class event. Yet, running a stately lounge room on wheels carried distinct real-world responsibilities. The vast, heavy-duty body construction, combined with the large engine options, meant that fuel economy was notably heavy, transforming the car into an expensive choice during the harsh economic squeezes and fuel crises of the 1970s. Faced with rising running costs, many granddads reluctantly put the Rover up for sale to move into smaller, more efficient family hatchbacks. For many families, selling this car felt like saying goodbye to a cherished chapter of their lives, realizing they had exchanged an aristocratic, beautifully crafted sanctuary for an uninspiring metal box. Number 8. Morris Minor 1000, 1963 to 1974, the neighborhood friend. During the 1960s and early 70s, the Morris Minor 1000 was a ubiquitous, comforting sight across almost every single high street and suburban avenue in Great Britain. This honest little vehicle focused entirely on simplicity, powered by the rugged, highly economical A-Series engine and featuring its iconic, friendly rounded styling. It was the car that taught generations of granddads how to drive, acting as a totally unpretentious, dependable member of the household. But the miner's traditional construction possessed an ongoing vulnerability to the damp, wet British weather. The lower chassis rails, structural sills, and floor pans lacked modern factory rust-proofing, meaning that a significant amount of preventative maintenance and welding patches were regularly required to keep structural corrosion at bay. As modern, rust-resistant foreign hatchbacks arrived on the market, thousands of Grandads made the practical decision to upgrade. Numerous enthusiasts today say, however, that letting the old miner go left a permanent void on the driveway, missing that completely faithful, charming personality that made the little Morris feel less like a machine and more like an old friend. Number 7. Triumph Stag, 1970 to 1977, the V8 Dream. The 1970 Triumph Stag was a car that represented the absolute pinnacle of motoring aspiration for the family man. Beautifully designed by the Italian master Michelotti, it was a striking grand tour that offered a rare combination of open-top grand touring freedom, a practical 4-seat layout, and the beautiful, rumbling exhaust note of a bespoke 3.0-liter overhead cam V8 engine. It was a vehicle that turned Grandad's Sunday afternoon drives into something genuinely heroic. However, the Stag's advanced mechanical layout suffered from distinct engineering oversight from the factory. The cooling system featured a high-mounted water pump that was highly vulnerable to airlocks, and the narrow cylinder head water jackets could clog easily if maintenance was deferred, leading to rapid overheating and expensive repair bills. Faced with mechanical frustration or escalating costs, many Grandads parted with their Stags for simpler, enclosed family cars. Some former owners still miss that unforgettable sensory experience, looking back with a mixture of fondness and regret, realizing that when the Stag was running properly, nothing else on the British road could match its sheer style and musical presence. Number 6. Rover P6, 1963 to 1977. The engineering triumph. Launched to immense critical acclaim, the Rover P6 was a highly sophisticated masterclass in forward-thinking executive design. It moved away from traditional styling to embrace a radical base unit architecture with bolt-on panels, an advanced Dion rear suspension layout, and standard four-wheel disc brakes. For a Grandad who appreciated technical innovation, the P6 offered an incredibly poised, flat handling, and quiet ride that insulated the family perfectly on long motorway journeys. But that advanced engineering layout presented a distinct challenge for the average driveway mechanic. The rear brakes were mounted inboard, positioned directly next to the differential rather than out at the wheels to reduce unsprung weight. This meant that standard brake pad swaps or caliper adjustments were exceptionally tedious, time-consuming tasks that local garages charged premium rates to complete. When maintenance bills began to compound as the vehicle aged, many Grandads decided to trade the P6 for more conventional, low-maintenance transport. For many families, however, the realization came too late that the clinical, stiff ride of modern replacement vehicles couldn't hold a candle to the serene, floating comfort of the Rover P6. Number 5. MGB, 1962 to 1980. The Spirit of Freedom. For the Grandad who refused to completely surrender his sporting youth after starting a family, the MGB was the ultimate open-road escape. With its beautifully balanced proportions, crisp handling, and highly reliable B-Series engine, it offered the average working man a genuine taste of classic British sports car freedom. It was a car designed for winding country roads, sunny summer evenings, and the pure joy of manual driving. Yet, utilizing a traditional roadster through the changing seasons required a fair degree of compromise. The dual SU carburetors were notoriously sensitive to changes in temperature and atmospheric pressure, demanding regular manual adjustment to prevent flat spots or a rough idle. As family commitments expanded or storage space became a strict premium, many Grandads reluctantly sold their sports cars to move into sensible saloons. Some former owners still miss that raw, uninsulated connection to the elements, bitterly regretting the decision to trade wind-in-the-hair freedom for modern, boxy isolation. Number 4. Classic Mini, 1959 to 2000. the packaging marvel. The Alec Isagone's design Classic Mini was an absolute revolution that completely redefined the global automotive landscape. By mounting the engine transversely and placing the wheels at the absolute corners of the vehicle, it offered an astonishing amount of interior passenger space within an incredibly tiny footprint. It was a cultural icon that crossed all social boundaries, serving as Grandad's agile city commuter and the family's trusted runabout. However, the Mini's revolutionary packaging required a distinct compromise when it came to long-distance family travel. The cabin featured minimal space for structural sound insulation, and the unique rubber cone suspension layout meant that cruising down a modern, high-speed motorway was an incredibly loud, firm, and physically tiring experience for passengers. Seeking greater refinement, quietness, and cargo space, thousands of Grandads eventually sold their Minors and Minis to make way for modern hatchbacks. Numerous enthusiasts today say, however, that no modern Super Mini has ever managed to replicate that sharp, responsive go-kart, handling and joyful, democratic personality that made the original Mini an absolute legend. Number 3. Ford Escort Mk1 and Mk2, 1968 to 1980. The nation's favorite. Throughout the late 1960s and the entirety of the 70s, the Ford Escort was the undeniable, rock-solid backbone of British family motoring. Whether it was the flowing, Coke bottle styling of the Mark I or the crisp, sharp lines of the Mark II, the Escort focused on absolute mechanical simplicity, powered by the highly reliable and easily tunable cross-flow engine. It was an incredibly honest vehicle that any Grandad could service on his own driveway using basic hand tools. But the Escort's immense popularity also turned it into a primary target for the elements and changing fashion. The factory steel panels lacked adequate rust protection against winter road salt, causing sills and arches to degrade rapidly over time if neglected. As values plummeted in the 1980s and 90s, thousands of Grandads traded their old Escorts for a pittance to move into front-wheel drive models. For many families, looking back at old photographs today brings a deep sense of remorse, realizing they had let go of an incredibly honest, unkillable workhorse whose skyrocketing classic value and historic charm are now completely irreplaceable. Number 2. Jaguar Mark II, 1959 to 1967. The pinnacle of prestige. The 1959 Jaguar Mark II was the absolute embodiment of British motoring grace, space, and pace. It was a luxury executive express that commanded instant respect on any street, featuring a stunning cabin lined with thick leather, deep carpets, and a polished burr walnut dashboard, combined with the powerful, racing-bred XK straight-six engine. It was the vehicle that made Grandad feel like a true captain of industry every time he started the ignition. But maintaining a thoroughbred sports saloon required a level of financial dedication that could easily overwhelm a traditional family budget over time. The sophisticated engine layout and complex suspension systems demanded meticulous upkeep, and if left sitting idle in a damp garage, the bodywork and leather interior required constant preservation to prevent deterioration. Selling a Mark II was almost always a practical decision forced by changing family economics or rising maintenance bills. Yet, many owners later admitted that watching that iconic, leaping cat silhouette drive away with a new owner was one of the most difficult and deeply regretted automotive decisions of their entire lives. Number 1. Austin Mini Cooper, 1959 to 1974. The ultimate heartbreak. We arrive our number 1 spot, representing what is arguably the single most regretted automotive sale across the entire history of the British family driveway. The original Austin Mini Cooper. This pocket-sized masterpiece took the revolutionary packaging of the standard Mini and injected it with pure motorsport DNA, courtesy of John Cooper. Featuring twin carburetors, front disc brakes, and a fierce rally-winning pedigree, it was a tiny giant killer that could routinely humiliate exotic sports cars on winding country roads. But using an original Cooper as a daily family machine in the 1970s or 80s was a noisy, firm, and uncompromising experience. The tight performance tuning meant that it required regular maintenance, and the stiff suspension settings transmitted every single imperfection in the road surface directly into the cabin. Thinking practically about comfort, safety, and modern convenience, thousands of Granddads sold their original Coopers for absolute pennies, just to clear garage space for quiet, plastic-trim hatchbacks. It stands today as a moment of absolute, historic heartbreak. Thousands of families who made that logical trade look back with deep, unshakable remorse, realizing they held a timeless, priceless motoring icon in their hands and let it slip away forever. The moving history of these 10 magnificent classic companions reminds us that the true value of a great motor car can never be measured in digital infotainment screens or modern plastic efficiency, but in the permanent, irreplaceable memories they leave behind in our hearts. Subscribe to UKTorque for more unvarnished, honest chapters from our rich automotive past. And let us know in the comments below, which of these 10 legendary classics do you wish Grandad had kept safely locked inside the family garage today?